Hi everyone, I'm Betty Russo. This is episode number 90 of our North Jersey Lifestyle and Real Estate Show. Thank you so much for joining. I am really excited to be able to speak today with Carrie Cooper from Organize a Difference. This woman is incredible and I can't wait to share with you everything that she's doing. So stay tuned. And real quick, if you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, click that subscribe button, and this way you'll be notified each and every time we release a new video. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Betty Russo. I'm excited to share my best North Jersey lifestyle and real estate tips with you, and so much more. On with the show. Hi everyone, I'm Betty Russo, and I'm here today with Carrie Cooper from Organize a Difference. Carrie started her business in 2013 as a professional organizer. She is now also a certified life and grief coach. Thank you so much, Carrie, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
It's so great to see you. I really love what you do. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? I think who you are as a person has a lot to do with your business and what you're doing.
Yeah. So I am a Ringwood girl, born and raised here. I grew up in a bit of a dysfunctional home. My mom had untreated depression. She was also sick. She got sick with cancer when I was 11 years old. And that was really hard. My dad was not home a lot. And so I went through a really rough time in middle and in high school, coping with my internal pain in unhealthy ways. My mom died when I was a junior in high school, and I was really grieving the loss of her life and some other significant relationships. And it brought me to a place, honestly, where I embraced my faith in God in a really deep way. And that's kind of the foundation of where I start. I got married and lived overseas with my husband for a few years.
Wow.
British refugees in northern Iraq, and came home with one child in tow a few years later. And that's where I started my full-time work of being mom to 6 children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
2006, I started caring. My dad also, he was in the home where I grew up in. And so he was sort of giving some signals that he wasn't doing so well. And so that started really a 7-year journey of me caring for my dad while raising my own kids. He was diagnosed shortly after with dementia, and he lived with us for 3.5 years. And so the last year of his life, I felt something was changing. I was transitioning. He had to be in a lockdown unit at a full-time memory care facility. And I was still, again, raising my own kids, babysitting for a few other families, but felt, it was going to be maybe time to start working outside of the home. So I have a background in community health education, a bachelor's of science degree, and I started exploring like 14 different careers, and nothing seemed to be a good fit, but I kept coming back to this thing called organizing. And I had no idea it was even a field in which you could work and earn income. So I had moved about 7 times. I downsized a ton of possessions. I've lived in small spaces. I've managed kids' school and social and sports schedules. And so organizing was really a natural fit for me. And I launched my business in 2013.
Wow. So you know what? I just have to say, like you did share a little bit of your history with me, but not all of that. I didn't know all of that. That's amazing. It's fantastic. I mean, hats off to you. You obviously dealt with a lot in your lifetime, and to be able to like turn that around and use it for something positive is fantastic. So you have a quote on your website, and I'm going to read it from my notes, because, yeah, I just want to make sure I get it right. So your quote says, "I work with overwhelmed women in life transitions, grief, and loss, helping them clear clutter so they can live with more peace and purpose." So you're helping clearing clutter in a way, it started with your organizing, but it's gone into so many, it's gotten so much deeper than just, organizing someone's household's possessions. So how did your business evolve? What was, how did the transition happen from clearing clutter in their homes to clearing clutter in their lives? And how do you think the two are related?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I right away knew I needed some professional foundation behind me. So I joined NAPA, which is the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Consultants, and I joined my local New Jersey chapter. A few months later, I found out about the ICD, the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. So I've received a ton of great training and education from top experts in the field. In 2015, I was introduced to Coach Approach for organizers, and so had no idea what coaching was all about, but I figured, let me sign up and take this course to add into my skill set, and I fell in love with coaching. I took an essentials course. I took strengths-based coaching, life and ADD coaching, and brain-based coaching. You see, a lot of my clients are affected by chronic disorganization. And what that is, it's a history of just always having disorganization sort of follow you that impacts the quality of daily life. And so I began integrating coaching into my home organizing client appointments. And so the way I like to describe it, instead of me just coming in and doing work for the client, I come in as a coach, and we have a partnership, right? So it's a safe listening space. They really, often are filled with a lot of anxiety and overwhelm and shame when I first start working with them. So coaching really helps dig down to the roots of the why is the disorganization and the clutter even there. So it's just added so much into the way that I serve my clients. In 2017, I started a credentialing program, continuing on with my coach training to get my CPLC, which is my Certified Professional Life Coach credential, with another coach training school. And I also got a group coaching training.
Wow.
Yeah, so in April in 2018, I went through the roughest life transition ever. I lost my brother to suicide, and that shifted many things for me, the very nature of my work. I went through my own healing journey and processed through a lot of grief clutter. God allowed me to see how my pain could actually be used to bring hope to others in this very work that I do. So interestingly, I received my credentialing as a certified grief coach this year on the 2-year anniversary of my brother.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, and so I am just humbled, actually, that I can honor my brother's life and his legacy as I continue to live out my own. So as far as the two and how they're related, over the years, I've learned tons of tips and tricks and strategies for helping people clear clutter, the physical clutter, and new systems and routines. I've loved it, but as a coach, I began to recognize that clutter, it's not just what we see on the outside. It's a reflection, really, of what's going on in our mind and in our souls. We live in this world that's constantly telling us what we need to do, how we need to live, we need to do more, we need to be more, right? And
Yes.
so we stay busy. We don't know how to cope with it, and we stuff down all that stuff inside, but that actually adds to the overwhelm that we feel, especially when we begin to experience our own life transitions in grief and loss. I was very surprised to find out in my grief coach training that there's over 43 life events that create feelings of grief. It's not just a loss through death.
Wow.
It could be a move,
Right.
a career change, a chronic health condition, a divorce, empty nest syndrome, a broken relationship. With COVID, we're all experiencing loss and trying to figure out this unsteady nature of, oh my goodness, what does life look like now?
I find that so interesting. It's true. I mean, clutter has so much to do with who we are internally. And I think it's fantastic that you're not only helping people, clear the clutter on the surface, but you're digging deep to really have a lasting impact on who they are and how they handle, whatever they're going through. I think that's amazing.
Very much woven together, the two types of services that I do.
Absolutely. So how does it differ from therapy, Carrie? How does coaching differ?
Yeah, it is very different. And I appreciate this question. So with therapy, I kind of look at it very simply as a therapist kind of looks to fix the past, right? They're in charge of the session. They kind of set the agenda and diagnose the problems. They focus on a lot of feelings and maybe past events and improving mental health. Therapists primarily deal with the why do I questions. And they are also very rigorously supervised before they become licensed. They're subject to their own state standards, right? So coaching is more of a partnership, a collaboration, where the
Got
client
it.
sets the agenda, and I, as a coach, guides them through, again, that process that I've been trained to do. We focus on sort of where they're at right now, their potential, the values. I ask clients, I'm always so amazed. I'm like, so what are some of your learning styles? What are your values? And they're like, well, no one's ever asked me. I've never thought about it before. And I'm like, really? You have so much amazing gifts and skills in which to serve the world. And it's just so much fun to begin to discover these things together. So, we work with a lot of strengths, and again, get into that whole purpose and why am I here? And we start you're here right now, client. Okay, so who are you? Where are you now? Where do you want to be going? Sometimes they're not really sure, and through the coaching process, we get clear on that. How will you get there? And what's going to get in the way? What are the obstacles, right? We all have obstacles. So there's a ton of support and accountability that a coach provides.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say this, coaches are not licensed. However, if anyone's looking for a coach, it's really important to get one that's credentialed through a rigorous coach training program. So all of the programs that I have gone through have been accredited by the ICF, which is the International Coach Federation. And it's really the standard in the industry. So I'm supervised with extensive training.
So that's great. Besides your background and all of your credentials, just the fact that I feel like a lot of people that are dealing with disorganization and grief, and they get themselves into, by no fault of their own, just such a dark place sometimes, they don't even realize how amazing they are and what they have to offer. So I love that you do that.
Yeah, it's so funny when I have a client that I work with virtually, and she's learned over time. I've worked with her for a few years, and she'll say something. I'm like, oh wait, what did I hear you say? And she's like, oh, you caught me again. I'm like, okay, so let's replace that negative thing that you've said about you. I mean, she's worked through a lot of abuse, honestly, and so there's all of this years of negative stuff that people have said to her or said about her. And so, over time, it's like helping her to reframe and have a new perspective on the amazing woman that she is.
Yes.
These women are amazing people, but sometimes they've just never heard it validated.
Right.
By somebody else.
And that's what you're there to help them learn and do. So what does organization mean, Carrie, to people who come to you for help?
Usually when I'm offering a presentation or, talking to the client, I say organization is really about knowing what you have and being able to find it when you need it. There are many factors that contribute to someone who is facing organizational challenges. There's two types of disorganization. There's situational and then the chronic disorganization. So in the beginning, when I do my complimentary call for anyone calling, to just find out, hey, what kind of clutter are you dealing with? What kind of organizational challenges are you facing? What is the help that you're actually looking to have? So understanding at the root of what's at the base of the clutter, underneath all the stuff, whether it's the physical or the outward busyness of life is a big part of my process. Sometimes it's a time management problem. Sometimes it's a brain-based challenge. Some of my clients have OCD, ADD. They might have a traumatic brain injury, a past trauma, a current life transition that they're working with, or a result of some unresolved grief. I've been offering a lot more virtual sessions since COVID. And again, we can work virtually doing organizing in a home. Sometimes we get clear on what it is they want to accomplish. We'll be on the Zoom call and they'll be off doing their work and check in. So it all depends. It's a very custom fit work that I do. Every client is so unique. And so I offer things and then we kind of custom design programs.
Sounds wonderful. But you also offer workshops, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so from the organizing and coaching side of things, I've done stuff on like paper management, boundaries. Sometimes it's not just boundaries with relationships, it's boundaries with our stuff, it's boundaries with our time. I've done organizing 101 and living clutter free for like libraries and women events and mom groups. What is a new thing I'm offering, which I'm super excited about, is this thing called workplace grief. And so although grief is this universal human experience, and it's really challenging to cope with a lot of times when people go through a loss, they're sort of expected to go back to work after a certain period of time, and everyone just expects everything's just fine. But grief can have significant consequences in workplace areas like productivity and revenue, absenteeism, safety, mental health, morale. So it's got a ton of negative impacts that employers, big and small businesses, are not even aware of. And so I'm offering now these workshops to really train those in leadership, perhaps human resources management. If it's a small company, everybody can kind of be involved, but it's really helping people understand the impact of grief in the workplace and how to support one another, the grieving employees, as they balance productivity and implement a real compassionate and grief-informed workplace culture. And so they're about 60 to 75 minutes. They're interactive. I try to make whatever work I'm doing, life is hard and heavy enough, we try to make it as much fun as possible. Mm-hmm. And so that's really cool. Yeah.
That's fantastic, because I have to think that, businesses, like you said, large and small, I mean, this might even be something that they don't even realize upfront is an issue. I mean, we don't have an on-off switch to grief, right? So, I mean, who's to say that, after X amount of time out of work, you're going to come back to work and just be perfectly fine? I mean, that's almost unrealistic.
Right.
So,
and that gets, that very thing that you just said gets kind of topped over with all of the busyness of life. I mean, I was in a grief support group, and one of the women came in. For 8 years, she hadn't dealt with the death of her husband, and it was just so much pain, but she felt like she just needed to get back to work and be busy with work. And now 8 years later, she's in this place of realizing life feels so cluttered, and now she's ready to work and process through her grief. And some people can take many years if they don't work through the process, but it's really healthy, and it's definitely brings them to a better quality of living when they do.
Yeah, I can imagine. So Carrie, what is your ultimate goal when you're working with a client? Each and every one of your clients, what's your goal for them?
Yeah, so as you can tell, my work is really varied, right? And so whether decluttering someone's home with them in preparation to move, or organizing for a spouse whose health is declining, setting up, I've helped women set up their homes for virtual learning this season. Helping them process through their deceased loved ones' belongings, because there's this sense of you just can't let go. You're not
right.
So whatever kind of work it is they need, they all have a few things in common. They call overwhelmed, they're stuck, they feel ashamed, they feel sometimes that they're suffocating. I've had women say, I just feel like I'm suffocating, I can't breathe. They're feeling really alone and judged and hopeless, right? So they're all looking to figure out and find out a way forward. So the struggle with clutter, whether inside or out, they want things different and have more peace and to live more fully. And they're not sure how to make that happen. So we do a lot of perspective work, celebrating the wins, big or small, and we do a lot of focus on that whole person. It's not, again, just about that clutter, but I mean, I'm also always asking women, okay, so what are you doing self-care wise? How's your exercise and your sleep? Are you doing things that make you laugh and enjoying life in the midst, again, of the really hard transitions that you're facing? So my goal is to leave each client feeling heard, validated, supported, as we identify and work on their very unique challenges. So I always say I'm like a personal cheerleader. I champion them when they sort of pick up the skills and take the steps forward. And again, it's really hard for some. So some need just a little bit of a slower, gentle pace, but we're always just easing a few steps forward.
So that must be very rewarding for you. I know that's not your goal with your clients. The goal is really to help them, but it has to be self-rewarding because you're helping people, and you have to be developing some sort of relationship with them because you're digging so deep, and it just has to feel so amazingly good for you to be able to help people like you are. So yeah, we need more of that.
I feel like, who am I to be able to do such amazing work? And it's not always easy. I mean, after I get off the call with you, I'm actually going to probably go down to a town in Bergen County near New York City. And I have a client who is on hospice, and we may not make it through the next day or two. And so I've been going down there just to visit with her and hold her hand at the last, these last few days of her life. And so I've worked with her probably about 5 or 6 years. And so a lot of my relationships with my clients over time, we just developed this really strong, deep bond. I mean, it's just so precious, and they are really heroes. They work through so much, and I just, I love each one, and I'm so proud. So
yeah. And you're a hero too. I mean, I know you're not looking for that, but you know what? I mean, you're doing so much good. So it's really beautiful what you're doing. Yeah. So Carrie, I have to ask you, I don't know that there are a ton of people out there that know a service like this is available to them. How can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's organizeadifference.com. I am on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I also, people can go on the homepage of my website and sign up. I just do a monthly blog post. I am big on not overwhelming and cluttering people's inboxes. So I try to offer things that are helpful, and whatever I do share, I try to make sure it's full of lots of value. But yeah, if anybody wants to reach me, my contact information is on my website. So.
Yeah, and I'm certainly going to share your information with everyone that I know. So yeah. So thank you so much, Carrie, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I really love everything that you're doing. You're making such a difference. So I'm happy to highlight you on my show. It's great to have you. Thank you.
Good to be here.
All right, we'll talk soon. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Please reach out to me on social media or visit northjerseylifestyle.com. See you next week.